Hello, and thanks for joining us on Encore. Coming up on today's show. In front of the camera, she's been directed by the greats Michelangelo Antonioni, Wenders, and Krystof Kiewslowski. On stage, she's grappled with work by Chekov and Molière, and on top of all that, she's a polyglot with a sideline in music. Irène Jacob's now the voice behind Marguerite Duras' play, The Malady of Death. That's on stage here in Paris. She joins me in the studio to tell us more. Irène Jacob, thanks so much for joining us today. Now, you take on the role of the narrator in the play The Malady of Death, written by Marguerite Duras. Now, Duras herself was well known for her voice, very particular voice. She narrated the film Hiroshima, Mon Amour. Were you inspired by that voice, its qualities, its characteristics?
Well, I did listen to 8 hours or 9 hours of interviews on records that I had this summer. And I really tried to understand, you know, how she thinks, how she precises things, how she leaves some other open. And then I left it because I didn't want to copy or to try to so I was kind of, you know, trying to find my own way. And with Katie Mitchell, the way is to be precise.
Now, Katie Mitchell, the director, indeed takes on these very dark themes, and the play explores relationships, the possibility of love or its impossibility. It's quite a philosophical question,
Absolutely.
I suppose.
Yes.
Did you relate to it in a more day-to-day way?
Well, I was thinking, how could I just name this story for myself before telling it? And I was thinking, oh, maybe autopsy of an impossible intimacy. Because this man comes and he has 8 nights, and for these 8 nights he wants to touch something. And is he going to touch it or not? This is what we are going to see. And there is a lot at stake for him, because if he doesn't touch it, he's really lost, and he is lost also. So he's trying to find something that probably is something that we're all interested in, which is this part in intimacy where there is trust or love, or where is fear and loneliness. All this is a very mysterious place to go.
Indeed. Well, let's get a better look at the performance. We went along to the Bouffe du Nord Theatre in Paris to check it out and to see what the audience thought.
I was really shocked, but in a good way. It's not the sort of shock you feel when you see something gratuitous. It was more of a poetic shock.
It's strangely tender and violent at the same time. There are a lot of reflections on the perception of life and how we perceive it through our bodies, and I found that very moving.
I loved it. It really makes you think about desire, but without it.
The acting is cold, but that's like the text, because there is such an impossibility of love. I mean, love is absent, there is an internal void, and I think that echoes the text well. But I felt distance from the work, not by the acting, but by the video recording, which takes up too much space, in my opinion.
Now, quite a lot of people talk about the shock they felt seeing this play because of some of the sex scenes, some of the violence. Can you relate to that shock? Were you shocked by it?
I think, yes, it is a shock. But as one of the spectators, it's very moving for me to hear them, because they're very young also. And I imagine they must have been maybe sitting on the top of the theater. And I'm very moved that they came and they received the play. As he said, you like it or you don't like it, but you're with it. You can, you know, it requires your attention. It requires your thinking or your emotion.
Indeed. Well, the director of the play, Katie Mitchell, worked with a young playwright, Alice Birch, to create a modern interpretation of Duras' text. Let's hear a little bit more about her approach to the staging of the work.
When we were thinking about this project, of course, we were all thinking about the theatre. It's the Bouffe du Nord in France. I wanted to offer up into the venue something that I knew was outside of a more normal theatrical production. And that's why we selected doing the multimedia work. So when you're watching it, you see the theatre at a ground level, so you can see the man and the woman by the bed. Now we can use the cameras to go really, really close so that we can see the pores of her skin. And you see on the screen above the shots that show how that man that you're looking at is actually scrutinising the woman's body.
Now, as we heard from Katie, there's a lot of technology involved, and we see the interface of these gadgets in intimate moments between the two protagonists. How do you think more generally our relationship with technology, with these digital things, affects our personal relationships?
Well, it's again a screen that can put us apart. Of course, it takes a lot of place right now in our communication, and in intimacy. Of course, this is something else. It doesn't create a lot of proximity, probably.
Yeah, it seems like a very contemporary concern. Now, you yourself have built a very eclectic career in cinema, worked with some very respected directors in a handful of languages. What is it that gets you on board with a film? Is it the person behind the camera?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And like, for example, even on a play like this one, we told me, Cathy Michel, she would like to meet you to be the narrator. The part of the narrator was not yet created. I had no idea what I was going to do. But I thought, it will be really interesting to work with her. And I really, I'm very pleased I do. And because I think this is what we are looking for as actors, to try and to stretch, to extend our perceptions, and to be part of the interpretation of a director you admire and you're interested in is something. It's a great adventure.
Now, one of your great critical and commercial successes was the film Red, part of the Three Colours trilogy by Krystof Kiewslowski. Now, all three of those films explore the French revolutionary motto of liberty, equality, fraternity, and Red is focused on fraternity. How did you understand the concept of fraternity as it was expressed in that film?
Again, Krystof Kiewslowski is trying to find a point of view of fraternity in a place that is not expected. It's two persons who have nothing in common, and that actually at the first sight don't like each other very much. They even disturb each other a lot, but they are not indifferent. And the fact that they are disturbed by each other will not prevent them from going forward and trying even to say how disturbed they are. And suddenly something can happen, like fraternity. So it's interesting because it's not a fraternity in a place that you think, it's not easy sometimes to find this fraternity, and to find it in where it is not easy was the choice of this director, of course.
Indeed, and all of those films actually blend in all of the themes. Equality is present in that film as well. And speaking of equality in your industry, we've heard from many actresses recently on the issue of sexual harassment. It's a conversation that started with the Harvey Weinstein accusations, but it's gone much further. When you look back at what you've seen in the industry, how do you see things developing?
Well, I think that this is a very important subject, and definitely not only in the industry. I'm thinking of all these men or women who arrive in a country without knowing the language, and how it's easy to be harassed or abused, or being asked to do things they don't want to do, or being not asked, actually. If they were asked, that was fine. So I think this is a tribune that people are trying to show and to struggle for, in order to give freedom and give rights to some people who are just in a position of vulnerability.
Finally, we asked you to flag up some of your cultural highlights of the moment, and I believe that you've been reading a lot.
Yes.
You've got a couple of books you wanted to point out. One is Les Rêveurs, the Dreamers, perhaps.
Isabelle Carré is an actress who is my really good friend, and she wrote this beautiful book that is just out right now, called The Dreamers. It's about an adolescent who's trying to build her life in a deconstructed family that is rebuilding itself too. So,
and then a great classic from Paul Auster.
From Paul Auster, who is a
classic,
friend also, and who wrote this amazing book, 4321. And it's about the choices we have. It's about how life goes in a way or can go in another. Actually, this theme is kind of for both books the same, but Paul Auster then has this ability to take you with his pen in places that he doesn't even know himself, as he says, I have no idea why I'm writing this, but I'm writing it. And I think this is very beautiful it's kind of a masterpiece also. I really advise you to have a good...
Okay, well, 2 literary tips and a little bit of art. You flagged up Sophie Call's collaboration with Serena Carone at the Musée de la Chasse.
Fantastic exhibition, yeah. It's a wonderful exhibition at the Musée de la Chasse. Sophie Call getting in her way to her, how she can take her art in this museum and how she can make it resonate. And then Serena Caron looking at Sophie and trying also to... So it's beautiful themes. It's a big exhibition with a lot of different levels and rooms. It is something very moving also.
Yeah, quite poignant, but as always with Sophie Cal, quite funny as well.
Yes.
Irène Jacob, thank you so much for joining us. Now we'll leave you with a little taste of that exhibition on at the Musée de la Chasse and de la Nature until February 11th. And you can catch Irène in La Malady de la Mort, or the Malady of Death, currently showing at the Buffet du Nord Theatre here in Paris. Remember to check out our website. You can also keep up with Encore on social media. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.